Okay, we're live now.
Okay.
We're live now, Councillor Holditch.
Yeah, okay, it's 9:59. We're just going. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who are watching this live streaming of this meeting via the Combined Authorities website. Due to the government's guidance on social distancing, this meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the meetings regulation 2020. The software allows you to choose a name when you join the meeting. Members of the public, if you do not want to be identified, please choose a pseudonym. A decision summary and minutes of the meeting will be produced as in the usual way in accordance with the meeting will be available on the view of the meeting page of the Combined Authorities website. To enable the meeting to run in an orderly fashion, I would ask all members of the committee to keep their video cameras switched on for the duration of the meeting and keep their microphones muted except when I invite them to speak. Officers will join us to introduce their reports in the usual way. Any members wishing to ask questions and make comments could indicate this by clicking their raised hand function on the right hand side of the screen. When I invite you to speak, please unmute your microphone, ask your questions, and then mute it again to allow the officers to respond. As with all new arrangements, especially those involved with new systems, there is always a risk that we may run into technical problems, and I would ask you for your patience if we do. I would remind members and officers that all virtual meetings are recorded. Behave. I think is the answer to that. And I'm sure I don't need to say that to anybody of the Combined Authority. So, okay, members, we're going to begin by calling on the names of all members of the committee to establish your presence, and please confirm your presence. Councillor Ambrose Smith.
Present.
Councillor Mike Davey.
He's on his way, Councillor Holditch.
Okay. Councillor Liz Every.
Present.
Councillor John Nish.
I'm present.
Councillor Chris Seaton.
Present.
Councillor Elaine Wilson.
Present.
And myself, Councillor John Holditch. Do we have any apologies for absence? Don't think I've been alerted to anybody.
No apologies for absence. No. No. Councillor Davies should be here in a moment.
Okay. Does any member wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest on non-statutory disclosable interests? Please click and raise your hand function on the right-hand side of your screen now if you wish to declare any interest. Councillor Seaton.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. My usual declaration is that my wife works for the College of West Anglia in the apprenticeship department.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
I'm not sure whether this is relevant, but on item 2.4, I was involved in my previous job as I was involved in the design and implementation of the sector-based work academies.
Michelle, I don't think there's anything on the morning's agenda that would
That's
preclude.
absolutely fine. Thank you,
Yeah,
Chairman.
yeah, okay.
That's fine.
Okay. Can you put your hand down, Councillor Wilson, please? Thank you very much. Right, we're now being asked to approve the minutes of the meeting of the 6th of July as a correct record. Can I ask any member who does not agree with this proposal to click a raised hand on the right-hand side of your screen? Okay, I see no objections to the proposal. Is approved and the minutes are correct record, so we will take that as carried. Okay. The Basis Committee is happy to approve the minutes written subject to change again. I will ask anyone who objects. So we didn't change anything, so you don't need that bit, do you? All right. Okay, go to point 1.3, committee actions. Does the committee have any comments on the actions? And nobody indicating? Okay, then. I say we have received. You're happy with that, Michelle? Where nobody querying the actions?
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah. We have received a number of questions from the overview and scrutiny. A copy of the questions has been circulated electronically to all members of the committee in advance of the meeting. I will now read the questions and responses at the start of the relevant items on the agenda. Thank you. Does the committee have any comments on the agenda plan, please? You sure everybody's switched on, are we? Okay. Any comments on the CA forward plan? Okay. No comments notified. Okay. Right. I think these are the first reports of the Combined Authority Board, Part 2, pages 17 to 190. We have received 3 questions from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee in relation to this report. I will now ask the Democratic Services Officer to read the questions in turn, and I will read the responses in full. Thank you. Tamar.
Okay, so question number 1, business growth service full business case, and it's paragraph 52 of the cover report, page 22 of the agenda pack, describes the intention to develop support for entrepreneurs, either for young people or for mature displaced workers seeking new employment following loss of their current employ. What does the BGS bring to this area when the report acknowledges that there are many layers of existing support? It mentions mentoring, grants, incentives, and leveraging other programs. But could the pathway for a potential client be described in a way that illustrates how this will work to help people in their local area to become effective entrepreneurs?
Thank you, Tamar. Before I answer this question, can I just make a plea to officers, please? I was reading the documents last night. There's so many acronyms in it. Can we have either a glossary of terms or stop using acronyms, please? Because time you've worked out what they are, and you've lost the gist of reading the report. So my response to question 1 is the Business Growth Service, and I've got to do it now, haven't I? BGS does not seek to duplicate the layers of support that are available for job seekers and those that might be displaced from employment due to the impact of COVID-19. On some sectors, instead, it intends to link with existing players, in particular DWP partners with the Job Centre Plus, to make them aware of the entrepreneurship support available through BGS and the support of potential entrepreneurs and startup businesses. It is envisaged that this will be a relatively small proportion of startup business. Envisaged this will be a relatively small proportion and clients handed by Job Centre Plus. Both express an interest in starting up their own company rather than seeking employment and demonstrate the capacity and capability to do so. The pathway created would be the advisor of the Job Centre Plus to refer the specific client as described above to the growth advisor within the BGS, and the growth advisor would then meet the individuals to establish and validate. The level of ambition of the individual with the support being focused on startups with the ambition to grow rather than remain sole traders. The validity and potential of their business idea to succeed in the market. The individual capacity and capability of the network to establish and grow startups. And 4, the barriers to what success is relating to the idea of business plan or individual skills and experience. And there's more. Right, this will lead to a definition and scope of support and overcomes those barriers to service. Depending on the affordability, the individual will then be referred into a pool of coaching for 50% funding coaching and referred to the pool members of the BGC for coaching for free of charge mentoring. pathway into further services onward from either coaching or mentoring will be through the referral from the client's coach or mentor into the growth grants equality investment service. Once referred in, the access to the growth finance advisor will an entrepreneur business plan for growth beyond their own employment and the potential to attract either capital growth grant or equity advisor. The pathway from there into the skills brokerage to help the entrepreneur recruit and train a new talent to grow startups into scale up will there through their referral from the coach or mentor will be assigned for a 12 to 24 months into the skills brokerage. Having all those services lines within intranet business growth makes referral customer journey and management and customer experience much easier to ensure and coordinate. I hope you got all that. I'm sure you'll get it in writing. Tamar, question 2.
Okay, so the second question, so item 2.1, so this is paragraph 6.0, corporate governance from Growth Company, page 24 of the agenda pack. How will the activities of Growth Company be examined by the Skills Committee as it begins its work? The report indicates governance through the shareholders, and further into the body of the report, it describes certain members of the Skills Committee have various roles, as well as bi-monthly meetings with the Chief Executive. But what is the role of the Oversight and Scrutiny for CPCA and its Overview and Scrutiny Committee?
Okay, that's question 2. My response, the full business case, FBC, specifically omits specifying the role of the OSC within the oversight of the delivery contract of BGS, or Skills Committee governance that contract. This will because the OSC calling powers are set within the CPCA's '(S) assurance framework. However, it is envisaged that this just as the OSC requests update from the Chief Officer of the Business Board or implementation of the LIS as a significant element of the LIS implementation plan, OSC would want similarly regularly updates on the process of the BGS against the job creation and training and outcomes of the FBC. On the 24th of February 2020, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee was presented with a report on the scrutiny of the trading companies. That report outlined the following as decisions relating to these companies to go ahead with a combined authority board and Overview Scrutiny Committee can scrutinise the decisions of the companies exercising powers listed in 2.7 as the committee would scrutinise any other decision. To recap, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee have the power to review and scrutinise decisions made on other actions in connection with. And I think that illustrates the fact that there's so many ICRAMs in it that anybody listening to this that is a man in the street would never understand it. So if we could just be a little bit more conscious of what we've got there. Thank you. Okay. No public questions, I don't think, Dan Marza?
No, Councillor Holditch, there was a third question.
What's up? Okay.
Yeah.
Where is it? I tried to get away with that. You're so right. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, so again, this is on page 122 of 538, and it's Appendix 3, Local Economic Development Areas. The appendix suggests only Cambridge to be ready to develop their response, with all other areas behind. Can this disparity in response be explained? And what efforts are in place to ensure all areas are engaged fully?
You'll be pleased to hear this is a very short answer. Discussions have taken place with economic development officers of all the local authorities in terms of how the BGS will operate and focus in their areas. This is illustrated on pages 111 to 120 in great detail. The table on page 122 was merely illustrative progress of the discussions with each local authority. on provision of touchdown space for the BGS staff in their area. The LEA, I suppose that's the local authority, specific BGS mobilisation plan on page 111 and 120 will be developed over the first 6 months of the service, and the LEAs will fully and equally engage delivery with the BGS. Thank you. So I think I'll now go to John T. Hill to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. Tamar, could you put up the first slide? So members, I promise, going to keep this relatively quick, in that I'm not going to go into huge depth on the service itself. I'd rather answer questions on that. More about this first slide, which is the strategy that led to this service. The second slide that will describe the service, and then I'm actually going to go through the conditions that were set at an outline business case, of which there are 8, that members should be considering in their approval of the full business case, such that they are satisfied that those 8 conditions are met. And then I'll pop back out again into this third slide, which does talk about how the skills committee can be fully involved in the management and governance of the business growth service. So with the first slide then, this is to illustrate that our local industrial strategy, way back in November 2019, actually March 2019, defined 12 specific elements of our local industrial strategy, from things in blue there that you'll recognise in terms of our adult education work, increasing apprenticeships, of course, bringing a new university to Peterborough in order to address the skills deficiencies in the north of the economy. But core and the biggest single intervention that the local industrial strategy defined was the development of a business growth service with 5 specific elements within it. The first, a growth coaching service to find our most exciting and high potential companies that can lead growth for our economy and maximize their growth, the gradient of their growth, and the length and sustainability of their growth, on the basis that in all economies, including ours and across the UK, it's actually 6% of SMEs that create more than 50% of all the economic growth in any economy. So if you can find the 6% of small firms that have got the most potential, you can maximize the growth in your economy. That's what growth coaching is all about. Finding them, understanding their barriers and ambitions around growth, and then overcoming those barriers through coaching from an experienced coach who's done it before, has run a company, has built a company of a similar size, of a similar nature, in a similar sector. Then we've got skills brokerage, which is, if you will, the next part of the chain, whereby if you've got, oh, excuse me, could you go back, please, Tamar? The skills brokerage is the second red point there, which helps companies find the talent to feed that growth. And it specifically creates a link between learners in school and in FE, employers and the providers of further skills, and of course the lubrication in the system to make it work, which is funding. So their job is to put those 4 components together, to put the right talent in the right companies with the right skills provider, with the funding to get those skills developed and help those companies grow. in the post-COVID environment, that skills brokerage will not just be focused on these high growth companies, it will be focused on every company, and specifically it will be focused on employees that are displaced from sectors that have been worst hit from or by COVID and its resulting and associated economic shock. The third component in that line is inward investment. Of course, one would always try and find the most exciting indigenous companies and help them grow faster and longer, but that's only part of the story. Of course, one would also want to try and get new companies from outside the economy to locate into the economy and grow. And that's what the Inward Investment Agency and Service will be all about, locating possibly from national sources, companies into Peterborough and the Fens, and probably from international sources, companies going into Cambridge and South Cambs as a general trend. Then at the bottom right there in red, the Capital Growth Grant. Of course, fast growing companies don't just need coaching on how to overcome the barriers to success, they actually need money. Growth eats cash like mad, and growing companies need to invest in equipment and premises and such. So another really important component of the growth service as a whole is a grant and equity investment service, where we will have and do have £3 million worth of growth grants for smaller projects and probably smaller companies, and £6 million of growth equity investments for bigger investments. And through our procurement, we have secured a provider who would at least double, possibly treble that 6,000 of equity investments through sourcing investors to match our investment in these exciting companies. Finally, the fifth element is a set of grants around innovation and relocation. These are smaller grants and help companies write proposals to other granting authorities like Innovate UK or the European Commission's Horizon 2020 to pull down large 500k, maybe £1 million R&D grants to develop new products, because innovation-based growth, particularly actually in Cambridge, is a leader in Europe, but actually so is Peterborough. It's 15th in the amount of patent density per population. So innovation grants, and of course relocation grants for those inward investing companies who want to take on advice from planning consultants and architects and the like. Next slide, please. So in summary, we've got a growth coaching program that we believe and we are committing to producing nearly 3,500 jobs over the 3 years of the program, and a subsequent 3 years that growth will roll forward and be realized. So that's over six years. Around 1,300 jobs from inward investment, around 1,600 apprenticeships, and around 1,700 other skills outcomes. And that could be a placement, it could be someone in retraining, and then finally another 1,500 jobs from those growth investments, whether it's grant or equity. So that's as far as I'd like to propose going in terms of description of the service. What I'd like to do is take you through the 8 conditions that were set at OBC for approval of the FBC. The first condition was confirmation of the European Union funding of European Regional Development Fund and European Social Fund, of which there's about £7.3 million in this total £19.5 million service. The European Social Fund money is fully confirmed, and we are handling a contract now to contract that. The European Regional Development funding that goes into Growth Coaching Service and the Inward Investment Service. We have gone through the main applications process. The secondary applications, the second part of the application process is a fairly rigorous question and answer process. We have gone through that and we have answered all questions satisfactorily for MHCLG, the Communities and Local Government Department. And we have a letter of comfort suggesting that we should get our grant offer letter during the course of September. Pending that, the arrival of that grant offer letter, we will contract with the Preferred Delivery Consortium during October on the assumption that we receive that grant offer letter, which we are told we should. If we receive it later, we will simply delay contracting the whole service. And if we don't receive it at all, because something very unforeseen has happened, we will come back to the Skills Committee in January with a slimmed down version with this money missing from it for you to consider whether you want to continue forward with a slimmed down service. The second condition was the appointment of a delivery partner. Page 60 goes through our process of procurement, and we did offer the approved bidding consortium, or we informed the approved bidding consortium on the 4th of September they had been successful. We are in the Alcatel standstill period and will be till the end of this week. And after that, we'll be publishing, assuming we get no appeal, we will be publishing the name of the Preferred Delivery Consortium. So we have met that criteria. Condition number 3 was simply a cash flow forecast, which I will only say that it exists in Appendix 7. And I'd probably also add to that, that due to negotiations during this procurement by negotiation, which is a fairly innovative form of procurement as you negotiate along the way, we actually do have a cash flow forecast that leaves 450k of our budget surplus at the end. The next condition was that we get Revenue and Customs agreement and support to share with us their data on what a high growth company looks like so that we can target them better. HMRC have been doing work for nearly 2 years on tax returns to basically create an algorithm so that you can spot high growth companies simply from the trends in their revenues and their company filings. And they have shared that with us, and we are much more able to target what looks like a potential high growth company as a result. The next condition was that local authorities confirm their availability of space and in-kind support, and that was referred to in the question that Councillor Holditch read out earlier on, in terms of the fact that we have local authority, or excuse me, we have sub-economy mobilisation and delivery plans for all of these services that tailor these services to each sub-economy. But we are also in the process of agreeing with each local authority what specific support they could give us in delivering these services. For instance, time from their economic development officers, or space as drop-down space to meet clients and customers on their patch. The next condition was a full independent state aid report covering a wide range, I won't go through them, of innovative aspects of this process. And there is a 20-page detailed advice from Pinsent Masons in Appendix 4 that does indeed confirm that all the aspects of this service are indeed state aid compliant. A further condition, the seventh condition, was the production of a sustainability and environmental policy. That can be found in Appendix 5. And the final condition was the submission of evidence upon which that 3,498 jobs in growth coaching was based, that being based on an average of 2.8 jobs being produced as a result of coaching. And we were requested to get further evidence that that 2.8 jobs creation per coaching intervention was valid and correct. and we have indeed generated a significantly more evidence for the FBC that does indeed validate that performance rate. And indeed, the Department for International Trade only last month launched a program that looks breathtakingly similar to this on exporting using the same 2.8 assumption. And that is something like £30 million worth of export coaching across the country. We added 2 additional conditions that we felt that the Skills Committee and Business Board should consider when approving the final business case. And that was whether we had fully and appropriately taken into consideration the impact of COVID. I won't go through the ways in which we have done that on pages 23 and pages 24, but I can take questions on them. The other condition was that of the £927,000 of enterprise zone business rates receipts that we had assumed in our budget, was that money safe and secure given the impact of COVID on enterprise zones and the increase in remote working. And we have validated those forecasts with each of the developers of the enterprise zones and found them still quite conservative relative to their forecasts for business rate receipts. And I would also point you to the cash flow that we've now done that gives us 450k surplus at the end of this program, which is about half of the 927 of enterprise zone receipts. So we've got a safety factor of around 2 for our enterprise zone receipts. The financial implications are that the Growth Service Delivery Fund that we have generated, which is £14,939 of public sector funding, plus 4.5 million of private sector funding in the form of the contributions to growth coaching by the customers themselves. So that brings it to 19,499,000. That being the Growth Service Delivery Fund, we will be recommending that that is transferred into the growth company so that we can then commission and procure the provider. Additionally, we will be recommending to transfer 9.5 million of growth grants and growth equity from the local growth fund where it currently sits into the growth company so that it can be focused on these high growth companies. And if you'd like to go on to the final slide. Tamar, thank you. And the governance and the skills company involvement in the management of the business growth service is illustrated on this slide, whereby at the lowest level, there is a delivery consortium program management office, which has members of the delivery consortium across each of the service lines for the delivery consortium, and their back office, like the support functions and business intelligence for the service. That then interfaces on a monthly basis with the CPCA's Programme Management Committee, which involves the 3 orange central people who are the directors of the growth company, those being an independent chair, the growth company director and senior responsible officer for Business Growth Service, Brian Hyland, and the growth and the growth co-director for finance, which is our section 73 officer. Complementing them would be a member of this skills committee and a member of the business board, so that the skills committee have direct access to the detailed month-on-month progress of the service against its deliverables. And that Programme Management Committee, represented by the chair of GrowthCo, would then present every second skills committee on progress directly to you on the progress of the business growth service, particularly the skills element of it, the skills brokerage, as the senior legally responsible person, as the chair of the growth company. And then both the chair of the business board and Councillor Holditch will be present at 6 monthly reviews that the combined authority board will be given by the chair of the growth company. So there is direct accountability into this committee once every 2 meetings, and there is a service champion that we would seek nominations for, who will be involved in meetings every month with the delivery consortium. So I think that is that's it. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you, John. I think the bringing those slides in has helped in a very detailed and professional, if I might say so, presentation. So, members, questions from members, please. It must have been such a good report, John, that there's no questions. Oh, yes, there is. All right, Councillor Wilson.
I just wanted to ask whether there would be ongoing evaluation to measure the impact of the interventions, and whether this would carry on in the long term and the short term, in one respect to calculate the value for money, but also to just measure how these interventions have perhaps improved or not improved the situation for these businesses, and also for the people who are referred under the skills brokerage aspect of the scheme.
John T.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Yes, there will be annual reviews of performance against all of the deliverables, those being job creation and those skills outcomes. They will be measured relative to other programs that are happening nationally and internationally. And although it is not agreed yet with the preferred supplier, we are considering a random control test as part of that evaluation. We will definitely do normal evaluations that the combined authority and local authorities undertake habitually, but what we are very much aware of is that if we ever require additional funding or follow-on funding from Treasury, or a specific ask within a future comprehensive spending review, Treasury will not take our evaluation results seriously without a random control test. So we are looking to also implement those. They have a downside in that you have to refuse support to some of your customers randomly, by definition. So there is a little bit of a reputational wrinkle there in the service provision, but we think it may well be worthwhile.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Wilson? Take that as a yes.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, thank you. That's fine.
Okay, Councillor Liz Emery.
Oh, good morning. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, a very high-level strategic report. So thank you very much. I want to sort of really on the pragmatic, if I may. So what's actually going to happen on the ground? I am concerned, obviously, with my East Cambs hat on, because that's how I'm here. There's a lot of emphasis on Cambridge, Greater Cambridge, Peterborough, and I absolutely understand why that is. However, I'm concerned about the skills brokerage and the sub-economy approach. I know from East Cambs, where we have 75% of our businesses are SMEs, which are obviously your businesses that are ripe for growth. East Cambs is mentioned rarely, and actually a much later document, because of course all these documents hang together, don't they, John? Because you've got the overall and then you've got the so if you look at them all the way through and strand them, which I have done, I noticed that when it comes to talking in the business case about all sub-economies, when it comes to the sub-economy delivery plans, which is in a much later document, there is no mention of East Cambs. And I'm just wondering why that would be the case, because I would have expected a synergy all the way through, and I can't see that. And I know I'm referring to a document much further down the line, which we will get to, but it's looking at the stranding of the overall strategy right the way through down to the delivery plans and what we could expect on the ground.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Avery. So yes, that is true, and it is fairly deliberate. Cambridge and Peterborough tend to get mentioned because they're sort of big blobs that we've got economically, and they're also sort of in our name in terms of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. But what we really focus on in terms of the delivery plan is those sub-economies. So we will talk, and we do have delivery plans for sub-economies like the Fens. So we don't mention each of the 6 local authorities across the patch. We really focus on the sub-economies and how we'll develop delivery in the sub-economies. Although, of course, the sub-economy of the Fens is made up of sort of 2.5 really. It's Fenland, it's East Cambs, and then it's part of Huntingdonshire as well. So we do, so in practicality, there is no sub-economy body to deal with. So although our strategy is developed on a sub-economy model, actually the nuts and bolts of talking to someone about where is this company, how do they differ in the Fens sub-economy as to a company in Cambridge or Greater Peterborough, that's all done with local authority partners and economic development officers. So although strategically the document talks about sub-economies, the nuts and bolts of actually implementing it is with the economic development officers in each local authority. So they are our partners on the ground.
Chair, could I just ask a supplementary?
Yes, please do. Yeah.
Yeah. Then I'm concerned then from the skills brokerage process, which is actually what's going to happen with our schools and our returners to work or whatever, that East Cambs does not fall through the net here again, as it has done over so many years, because we are a growth area, and things tend to get polarized, and you've got one skills brokerage service which is going to cover all. And this is just a real plea from East Cambs that actually we are seen in exactly the same way in terms of growth, which is what we want, as any of the other sub-regions.
Yeah, so if I may respond to that, the first and single word is absolutely, and I've no doubt that when the chair of the growth company comes before you, you will be looking for splits on local authority, customer and activity levels, so that you can literally see that everywhere is getting a fair shake and an even distribution of both marketing, business engagement, learner engagement, school engagement, but also that everywhere is getting a fair shake on the outcomes that come out of that. So yes, it will be a demand. Or the growth coaching will be a demand-led service in that it'll be wherever those high growth companies are, and I have no reason to believe there'll be any less in East Cambs than anywhere else. The skills brokerage will be not demand-led, it will be supply-led. So it will be about us going into the schools, and we'll go into all 40 schools across the county. It will be about going into all the FE colleges and the employers as well. So it should be, and there is no reason why it wouldn't be, an even split across every local authority.
Okay, I'll hold you to that, John. Thank you.
I think we've lost Councillor Holditch. I think he's dropped out.
Yeah.
Let me just see if he. Catherine, are you able to try and get hold of Councillor Holditch?
I'll give him a quick call now.
So while Councillor Holditch is being found, could I complete my my part on this paper by drawing your attention to the recommendations, which are in the end, they are a presentation of those 8 conditions upon which approval is sought, plus the extra 2 conditions that we added around COVID response, adaptation, and the enterprise zone funding. And of course, the final request is that you delegate authority to myself, the lead member for economic growth, which is Councillor Holditch, and the monitoring officer and the chief financial officer, to enter into those contracts so that we can start this service in mid-October.
John, I think John and I had questions.
Oh, sorry.
I think with the other, there's too many Johns. With the other John going to work out. So, I don't know if John Niche wants to go before me. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mike.
Sorry, can we just find Catherine's just been on the phone to Councillor Holditch. Sorry.
Councillor Holditch is just rebooting his internet at the moment, or Wi-Fi at the moment, so he should be back soon. So okay. Just let you know, he's just in the process of. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we allowed to continue, Rochelle?
Sorry, could I just have a short break to go and get a glass of water?
Okay,
Yeah.
On that basis, should we just adjourn for 5 minutes conveniently, and that will allow Councillor Wilson to get some water as well?
Yeah.
So you'll just sit still and we'll wait. Yeah.
Councillor Holditch just joined us.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. We don't need the 5 minutes, but apparently 2 minutes just for the benefit of Councillor Wilson, if that's okay with everybody. Thank you.
Okay, where we got to? Sorry about that. My internet went down completely.
Chairman, we're just having a brief adjournment of 2 minutes, and we should be back up and running shortly. We're just waiting for Councillor Wilson, who's getting some water. We thought we'd be waiting for you as well, but you're back with us. Thank you.
I knew I had a reason for the internet going down.
Yeah, you come back.
After that long report from John. After that long report from John, we all needed a rest.
Yeah.
Did we move on at all? I mean, have we got to the recommendations yet?
Well, I went a bit early on the recommendations, Chair, but there were actually two questions to be asked still. One from Councillor Niche and one from Councillor Ambrose Smith.
I've got one from Councillor Mike Davey as well. Councillor Wilson has asked her question. She's still got her hand up, so when she comes back, we'll get that down. And I've got Councillor Niche and then Councillor Davey.
Yeah, it was Councillor Davey.
Yeah. I gave you a rest, didn't it?
It did. Thank you.
Time for that coffee, John. Yeah.
My apologies, I had a tickle in my throat.
Well done. Could you put your hand down, please? Thank you. Councillor Nish, your turn.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the break. That was most helpful. Actually, mine almost follows on straight from Liz, and it's the same thing. It's actually looking at it from a perspective of there's two areas, or should we say three, because you do mention the Fendon area, is that, you know, it's really looking at the whole package, because I think it was a very good strategic document, but I do think there are some areas which are classically missing. And I'll go back to mine as you know, Huntingdonshire. There's an awful lot about Peterborough, there's an awful lot about Cambridge, and we must remember that you know, with a very large district like Huntingdonshire, and also the perspective of more jobs being lost from that area than any other, that we really need to focus on all areas. Is one. So it's really just a follow up from Liz's one, is to a plea there to ensure that we do include all specific districts, because they all have their uniqueness, which I know makes it harder. The other one was the process regarding support, which I know you asked for in there. And I think, you know, local authorities, just obviously, we're all going to be fully aware we will struggle potentially with support, but I think it is imperative that we do give that support. And actually, I think we do need to do a bit more engagement from the combined authority into those local authorities, which from my perspective, and it might be a too high a level, so I'm not realising, seems to be a bit thin on the ground, specifically in Huntingdonshire at the moment. That might be slightly out of turn, but I'll say it because I'm not aware of how much connection has been made between specifically district local authority officers, specifically on Huntingdonshire, in that area. But the overall theme is just be mindful of, isn't it, that we're all going to be very strapped up for time and finances. So I don't know if there's anything that can be moved from combined authority towards those districts to help those supporting officers. Just a general flavour question for that one.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll just address sort of the level of interface and partnering first. I speak to Dave Edwards every fortnight for an hour through the Economic Recovery Group that is very much based around this. I probably talk to him on the phone every other week in between as well. And I'm with him tomorrow, and I'm with Councillor Fuller tomorrow, Wednesday morning. So we really are delving deep into each of our local authority partners. As you say, some local authorities have more resource than others. South Cambs have just resourced up on economic development, but other local authorities have less. So it's a tailored solution to each. We can have them as deeply involved or as more supervisory as they like, depending on how much resource we've got. What we will do is make sure that any data they've got around the companies on their patch that we're getting access to, and we're sharing our data as well, so that I hope and I do believe that 18 months in, each local authority will have a much deeper understanding of the companies on their patch because of the Business Growth Service, because the Business Growth Service will attempt to talk to and engage 15,000 companies over the 3 years. So a substantial amount of companies in each local authority area, and we will be diagnosing their growth ambition, their barriers to growth, their strength of the management, the strength of their growth strategy and their organisation, their products, their markets. So we hope that as a result of this, local authority economic development officers will have a much deeper understanding of what's going on, and they'll be involved with our growth advisors. And we will make sure that every growth advisor, who are, by the way, assigned geographically, they are assigned to different local authorities, geographically in different places, really. We will ensure that the local economic development officer has total visibility of every company being spoken to on their patch.
Thank you, John. I think that was a good answer to your question. Councillor Davey?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and apologies for lateness. I was all ready to go and then suddenly someone turned up, so forgive me, it's always the way. My question, one comment, one question, John. The comment is around the role of it's linked to your conditions, the sixth one about local authority, again about local authority. I suppose for us, how you relate to the GCP is significant. I suspect you're in regular contact with Niamh Matthews, but particularly because they're putting additional funding now into careers services. And also, I think slightly hidden is the work they're doing around sectoral research, which I suspect the Business Growth Service could hugely benefit and might save the Business Growth Service an extra amount of time. So that's the comment, really. I'm sure that's happening. The question is about, in the commissioning process, how flexible will you be able to be? And because I suspect it's around the two conditions related to COVID, I suspect what's going to happen is things will happen quite quickly in the next 12 months, and certain sectors and certain areas and geographies will become more vulnerable than others. And within the commissioning process, then it's about how you're able to ensure that flexibility, because it's quite difficult once a service is set up to then move stuff around. So I suppose the question is more about that, John. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Davey. Much to the chagrin of my procurement colleagues, I stopped procurement, I think, in something like June. And that was because exactly what you're describing there, Councillor Davey. When it came to June, we realised we were halfway through the procurement of a service that took no cognizance of COVID, or how we'd have to flex, and don't really know what the conditions are to deal with COVID between October through into possibly October next year. So we actually were legally to embed in the procurement all the flexibilities we needed to answer your question. We actually had to stop, reissue the tender process, and add a bunch of specification to the process about, tell me how you will adapt for COVID. Tell me how you will flex when conditions change, and we have to come to you and say, actually, we need you to focus on that sector, that place, that type of company. So we have very professionally embedded those flexibilities and agilities into the service through the procurement, especially by stopping it and creating a new procurement.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, John.
I can't see anybody else wishing to speak. So can I move to the recommendations, please? Do I have a proposed second?
Councillor
Okay, with your hand, if you wish to propose. You've got Michelle.
Councillor Alditz, we're having problems hearing you.
Are you?
Yeah.
That you can't have that, can you? Yeah. Okay.
Seems to improve.
I've asked members if they wish to move to the recommendations, and I've asked somebody to second, propose a second. I think I have a Councillor Ambrose, I think, has proposed.
Happy to propose.
Sorry?
Happy to propose, yes.
Yes, and Councillor Wilson, I think, has seconded. Yes? Thank you very much. Do I have anybody against these proposals? If you do, please show now. Thank you. I think that's unanimous, so I don't need to go to everyone, do I, Michelle? Michelle?
That's absolutely
Happy with that?
fine. That's fine. Thank
Yeah.
you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. So, after all that, go with the page. I think I'm going on to the wrong page here. So, okay. Just a minute. Bear with me. I'll be there with you in a minute. Right. Report recommendations. This is the next one, and it's going to be introduced by Alan Downton. Alan, are you there?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning, members.
Sorry, Chair, sorry to interrupt. There's a question that we need to read out from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee.
Okay. Yeah, I can see it. Yes,
Yeah.
sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll do that first, and then we can introduce the report if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Please.
Okay, so we received a question on the Evidence and Insight report. And the question was, the Metro Dynamic report into the impact of COVID-19 on the local economies within CPCA indicates a minimum 20% reduction across all economies, and with a variety of impacts on sectors which differ across the three. The downturn requires a number of initiatives to rebuild the local economy. One of these is to encourage relocation of quality businesses from London permanently to the area. How is this to be achieved? Is it realistic?
Thank you. The answer is we are soon to launch the Business Growth Service, and it will contain a wide package of support to assist scale-up, high growth businesses to restart and continue their growth plans. Part of the range of services will include assistance for businesses who wish to relocate in the medium term. As part of this new service, we will continually explore and promote opportunities to support businesses who may want to relocate. This is included grants, growth coaching programs, skills and recruitment, bespoke support, advice, guidance and introduction to the local ecosystem through dedicated account managers. Although this won't just be centred on targeting on London, but also in other regions of the counties. And other regions and counties who border the CPCA IEG Northamptonshire. Also, central government departments in London are reviewing their estate requirements with potential for relocation out and into the regions, and the Mayor and leaders of the combined authority have already communicated with them. Thank you very much. So, sorry, Alan, can you now introduce your report?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. This is the first phase of delivery as part of the integrated economic, business and skills insight work. This first report is the impact of COVID-19 and was produced by Metro Dynamics. I am joined today by Patrick and Nathan from Metro Dynamics. I acknowledge the report is lengthy, but we have never faced such a huge impact as COVID-19, and there is a lot we needed to cover. Following feedback from today and at the Business Board tomorrow, the report will be refined to go to CA Board on the 30th of September. There we are seeking sign-off to share with partners, stakeholders, etc. In addition, the report will be the basis for a monthly dashboard from October 22 through to March 21. And we are just starting to look at the technical side and content of the dashboard. The report will enable CPCA to better design the focus of interventions and be a key part of the local economic recovery strategy and support the Business Growth Service. This report will be refreshed in March, April 21. I'm now going to hand over to Patrick to give an overview of the report before opening up for further discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks very much, Alan and Chair. So I'm just going to share a screen now, and just a second. Let's do it quickly. Oh no, okay. So I can't share the screen from my computer, I'm afraid. So I'm just going to run through some of the main points on this. And as Alan has said, it's a long report, but this is the start of our work with you, and the plan from here on in is to produce this as a monthly dashboard so that you can see the kind of updated data and that you can use it and delve into the bits of it that you are kind of most kind of relevance. And the other thing that we're doing is to look at the data over the course of the next 6 months as things kind of start to play out in a slightly different way in the economy, and to work with your strategy groups and sector groups to bring forward some kind of recommendations, some ideas about how the changing economic situation reflects what you're doing in terms of how you deliver your strategies. And John T just kind of took you through how that's playing out in terms of the kind of design and the approach that's been taken to the Business Growth Service, for example. So I just wanted to spend just a couple of minutes on some headlines now, and I'll focus those headlines onto the kind of labour market parts of the report, and then conscious that it's more important that you have time to discuss it than I talk at you. The first thing I guess that it's really worth kind of noting is that the original forecast that the OBR did for sort of economic impact across sectors were probably too awful. Things have not, things have not been as bad as they were originally forecast, but overall output loss across your economy, has been around about 21% in quarter if you annualize across from quarter two. And that's interestingly, that has been reasonably consistent across your different local authorities and the kind of 3 sub-regional economies. And one of the things we want to do with this data over the course of the next kind of few months is to look in more detail at what's actually panning out in the sub-regional economies. The biggest hit has been Cambridge and the Cambridgeshire economy, which has lost about 6.2% of its output, which is about £370 million in quarter two. East Cambs is, if you like, the place that's done least badly with sort of 4.9%. But Fenland, Huntingdonshire, Peterborough have all had sort of 5.5% contractions. Overall, the UK economy grew by about 6.6% again in July, and the figures, most of the figures in the slides you've got take us to the end of quarter two, and next month we will have regional figures for quarter three, so we can start to see how that is panning out. But even though the UK economy grew again in July, it's still not made up even 50% of the hit that it took earlier on. So there is a long way to go in terms of overall sort of economic recovery. I think the other thing I would draw out is that we've yet to see, and I think we will see over the course of the next few months, and if you read your FT this morning, there's a lot from the Institute of Employment Studies in there about the potential labour market issues we face over the course of the period during which the furlough scheme is scheduled to end, and we've already seen significant redundancy notices over the course of the last couple of months, and those redundancies will wash out into the system over the autumn. Job advertisements on the patch are way down. They've started to recover. They appear to be recovering more quickly in the construction sector, which is not entirely surprising, and in some other sort of slightly lower skilled jobs in terms of the number of vacancies that are appearing on the patch. Most companies, most sectors have still got very significant numbers of companies using the furlough scheme. There's not been a huge downtick in terms of the number of people on furlough, which tends to suggest that, once companies are using the scheme, they're using it. The other thing we started to see is some increase in vacancies and commercial property vacancies, particularly retail and kind of industrial units. And I think that's, you know, that tells you something about the spatial impact of this crisis. It shows you that the perception that things have kind of closed and are not reopening is starting to play out into vacancy rates. I think the other thing that's just worth kind of drawing out is that average salaries have increased a little bit, and that would tend to suggest that to sort of further evidence to the thing which we think we kind of know is true, which is that it's jobs at the lower end which have been kind of cut first, and that's likely to play out in your, you know, in those communities which have particularly kind of struggling in terms of less well-paid communities. As Councillor Holditch and I were talking about when we had a quick chat about things the other day, there are also jobs being created as well. It's not, you know, it's bad, but it's not universally bad for all firms in all places. Some firms have, you know, pivoted fairly successfully into sort of new markets, and there are growth firms that have taken the opportunity to implement technological change and changing working practices that they may have been wanting to do anyway. Many people's business models have changed overnight, and they've responded in different ways, some more effectively than others and some extremely effectively. So what this is a whole load of change going on, and it's a whole load of change which I think has some quite significant impacts for how you think about the delivery of skills and employment over the next kind of few months. And there are sort of four elements really that I just wanted to kind of leave with you, because the data is fascinating and all very well, but what we do about it is probably more important. So the first is, and this is blindingly obvious, but it's really important, how you keep your ear to the ground and how you make sure you've got enough capacity focused on local intelligence and really understanding what's going on in the sub-regional economies and linking together, you know, providing the services for people who may be at risk of unemployment or come out of the labour market. You know, that local brokerage, that local activity, which we're good at, you know, you do it already, but that's going to be hugely important over the next kind of 3 or 4 months, and beyond. So teeing that up, making sure that is kind of active is hugely important. And linked to that, how you actually deliver skills into a weaker labour market, into a labour market with social distancing, how you think about funding potentially individuals as well as institutions in that situation is really a big deal. You know, how we actually retrain people is going to change and has changed quite dramatically this autumn already. So the delivery of skills is a really big deal, I think, for you. Linked to that, we don't yet know what the kind of long-term structural shift in the labour market is going to be. We're 6 months into a pandemic and it is simply too soon to tell. But alongside, you know, very active local kind of intelligence and watching and matching and brokerage and things over the next few months, very active engagement with businesses and kind of working out exactly what people think they're doing and what they think they need must be really kind of important as well. I think I'll leave it there. The important thing for us is to really kind of establish a set of data that we can update, that you can look at in as much or as little detail as you want to over the course of the next kind of 6 months. It will be really good if a couple of board members could volunteer to work with us to do that, help us do that dashboard design, to be a bit of a kind of guinea pig so we can test it on you, so we can make sure that it's accessible. It won't be a very demanding job, but we want to design something with you so we know you're getting the data you need. And as we get into our work, we can use the data, we can use our analysis to kind of look at things in more detail to answer specific kind of questions that you have. So I'll leave it there. I'm very happy to take any questions on the slide deck or the issues more widely.
Hey, members. Can't see anybody wishing to speak, do I? Please indicate now.
Tom, Chair, sorry, just
Yeah.
Councillor Daly, sorry. Just Patrick was after volunteers. More than happy to be part of that dashboard design volunteering.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to volunteer? You did say 2 people. Okay. Well,
Fine.
anybody
Thank you very
afterwards want? I'm sure we can plug you into that. Okay. No, nobody else wishing to speak then. So I'll check that. You're asked to note the Metro Dynamics report. So are you happy to note that report? Do you have a proposer for that? Yeah, Councillor Seat and Councillor Niche. I think Councillor Seaton was up first, Councillor Niche was second then. Okay, all in favour? Yes? Sound like bargain hunt, don't I? Yes? Have some more. Okay, thank you very much. Look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Tamar, I think we got some more questions, haven't we?
Yes, we do. So this last question is for the COVID-19 local economic recovery strategy. And so the question is on page 270 of the agenda pack. The graphs show a disproportionate impact on unemployment due to COVID-19 on Peterborough than other areas in the combined authority area, with the current downturn potentially doubling after the ending of furlough support to the local economy. Predictions of economic recovery by 2022 further in the paper points out that unemployment rates will not recover as quickly. The indications are, therefore, that Peterborough will continue to lag behind the rest of the combined authority economy, and the relative position of the northern economy will worsen. What interventions are available to the Skills Committee to mitigate these concerning predictions, and what is realistically achievable in terms of skills investment disproportionately higher?
Sorry, that's Mr. Hill trying to communicate with me.
Disproportionately higher in Peterborough than in other areas to level up economic activity with more successful areas. There you go.
Okay, response to that, inclusive growth or levelling up, as it's more popularly described currently, is a key goal to the LIS and the skills strategy. The LERS confirms various national forecasts that Peterborough is amongst the hardest hit and the slowest to recover cities, and Cambridgeshire has the least impact to recover. This disparity in the economy performance, particularly linked to skills provision and availability, was highlighted in the SEPA and LIS. Hence, not surprisingly, these relevant strengths and weaknesses are highlighted through the events of such COVID-19 pandemic and economic shock associated with it. Hence, disproportionate investment was already planned as part of the LIS to promote more inclusive growth and dynamic for the future. And this is being continued as part of the LERS. The budget allocations for the CPCA adult education budget already favour Peterborough and the Fens and for the 2021 academic year, and could potentially favour those areas more in 21-22, subject to the Skills Committee approval. The LGF investment in skills in the north is far higher than that in the south of the economy, with flagship projects like 12.5 million investment in Peterborough University Phase 1 and a 14.6 million investment in Peterborough University Phase 2. And 447 million, I think that is, of the LGF skills investment of 31.26 million have been invested in Peterborough and Fenland, with the remainder being invested in Huntingdonshire, Kings Lynn, and just 450k under the old LET proposals. Thank you very much. I think I was getting a message from Mr. Hill just then. He wishes to introduce the next report.
Thank you. Yes, yes. Not as subtle a message as I was hoping it to be.
Carry on then.
Thank you very much. So yeah, I'd like to introduce the this item on the local economic recovery strategy, known as the acronym the LERS, which I will try and use less. The first thing I'd like to say here is that this local economic recovery strategy is a first draft, we intend to bring it back to the November Skills Committee in a much enhanced form that takes greater input from the evolving evidence base that you've just heard about, and better informs the combined authorities case for the investment from government in the comprehensive spending review. The document you have has benefited from something like 2 months worth of local authority economic development officer input, and from all 7 local authorities, from 7 business organisations locally, from the Greater Cambridge Peterborough, the Greater Cambridge Partnership, and Neve, who we mentioned earlier, has been very, very active in developing this, but also Public Health England and the Police Commission. So 2 months input that is fundamentally anecdotally based, but only something like 2 or 3 days correlation with the evidence base that you've just been presented with, because we were very keen to get the first draft of a recovery strategy to the September board set of meetings so that we could be implementing it in October as people were coming out of furlough. That brings with it limitations in that we're not as developed in this recovery strategy as we'd have liked. So we will be bringing it back in November in a form that is much more related to the evidence base. Whilst the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent economic shock has raised many challenges for us, the vision in this economic recovery strategy is actually very bold, and that boldness was born out of the business organisation's desire to be optimistic and on the front foot, and also the business board's input to it. So that the vision is actually to lead the nation out of recession by accelerating the recovery, rebound and renewal of our economy and achieving our ambition to double the GVA in a more digitally enabled, greener, healthier and inclusive way than ever before. The recovery strategy is based on 5 pillars that I hope you've seen an illustration of. Pillar 1 being to accelerate startups, scale-ups and setups through, of course, the growth coaching, the growth financing and the inward investment agency that you've just heard about. Also accelerating high-tech jobs growth with new innovation centres and incubators. Accelerating recovery in construction, which we predicted that construction would indeed be one of the areas, the sectors most heavily hit initially, but actually able to lead us out of recession. So a significant amount of investment there, both in the projects from the combined authority and investments in skills capacity, such as the recent 2.5 million investment in Huntingdon for a construction skills hub. Also accelerating that upskilling with education capacity development, like in Huntingdon, the adult skills budget and £10 million worth of apprenticeship levy within our virtual wallet. And then finally, and more future-based, a natural capital investment plan that can guide future investment to allow us to be greener and more sustainable. The interventions within the recovery strategy are shown in Appendix 1. Virtually all of them are interventions that are funded, practical and implementable immediately. They focus on the resources we have to hand to deal with recovery between October this year and spring next year. However, dealing with the structural and underlying issues that have made the North more vulnerable to such economic shocks, leaving Peterborough and Fenland in particular, but also other parts of the economy, hardest hit and slowest to recover in the UK, and Peterborough as a city is designated within the bottom 5 slowest to recover and hardest hit, compared to Cambridge, which is designated as in the top 5, and South Cambs actually as well. The top 5 least hit and fastest to recover. So there are evidence elements that mean that we need to develop this recovery strategy for November in a deeper sense, not least to look at particularly the thing that's going on at the same time, which will be the comprehensive spending review that will be happening between September and November when the fiscal event, the budget, happens, and how this economic recovery strategy can better inform the combined authorities investment prospectus for helping particularly the North, but also other parts of the Fens to level up faster and repair and move forward from the infrastructural weaknesses that made them vulnerable going into this economic shock, but also how we can accelerate and stimulate Cambridge and South Cambridge economic rebound through innovation-based growth, and particularly working with our partners in the Oxcam Arc and linking people and organisations like University of Cambridge and TWI with Cranfield and the University of Oxford on innovation growth. So I think that's it. We intend coming back in November with an item that is much more evidence-based, looks a lot more like the local industrial strategy in the way that it was based on the SPEAR evidence base, which this piece of work has not been quite so evidence-based because of the timing. And the other thing that we'll be working on for this November version is looking at how our asks of government can really accelerate the levelling up of the parts of our economy that went into this vulnerable, and the parts of our economy that probably will lead us and the country out of recession, and how they can be enabled to do that faster too. Thank you.
Okay, I understand from all that, John, is that the recommendation where we're invited to recommend to the Combined Authority Board, we're actually going to recommend that instead of coming back in January, you were coming back in November. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. And I think, because we're not altering the recommendations here, but that needs to be recorded in the minutes, I guess.
Yes, that's exactly right.
We can make a slight alteration there, a slight amendment, Chairman. So it would be at the end of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. Well, let's put comma, noting that the final draft of the LERS will be brought for approval in November 2020. Please, Tamar.
Yeah.
Okay, members, questions? Chris Seaton.
Thank you, Chairman. John, I think it's very good news about the development in Chatteris. I'm just wondering whether or what assessment has been made on the impact on the FE campus in Wisbech. And secondly, you're pointing out about Peterborough and Fenland as being at the bottom of the pile. But is there any way that FDC can assist in, in promoting, or any assistance that can be given? I'd be happy to look at.
Yeah. Just making some notes, Councillor. Yes, so in fact in Chatteris we've made 2 skills investments, one at Metalcraft around mechanical engineering apprenticeships, and one in Aeroform, literally just down the road, around composites apprenticeships. And yes, we did check on the impact in the CAWA, the College of West Anglia place it at Wisbech, and they really don't do much in the way of composites, and their mechanical engineering is not a strong area. Plus, of course, before we had offered the investment into Chatteris, the college in Wisbech had already accepted, and we granted, I think, something like I can't remember the number, but a large amount of money, so something around 1 million plus, for a construction hub in Wisbech. However, they were unable to actually construct it fast enough to meet the criteria we've got for our spend having to be complete by March 2021. So we did want to invest in Wisbech. We have invested in Chatteris, and we will be and have agreed that once we get new funding, we will be going back to the College of West Anglia in Wisbech and looking at how we can support their development. And yes, I'll be talking to Paul around how levelling up in Fenland can be achieved, particularly in partnership potentially with what we're doing in Peterborough on university and outreach there, but other things as well. I think it's important that our comprehensive spending review submission gets that balance right between using the powerhouse we've got in the south with Cambridge and Greater Cambridge in terms of leading us out of recession and fast growth, probably innovation based, getting that balance right with levelling up, particularly Peterborough and Fenland, but also in parts of Huntingdonshire and East Cambs.
Okay, David. Yeah. Okay, I mean, I don't accept that Fenland and Peterborough are other sick men of the economy of Cambridgeshire at all. I think it's just about the different types of jobs that we've got that will take a bit of time to recover. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. I've just got 2 questions. On the summary table, 1.3, in the accelerating high-tech growth, it refers to incubators. Will these be physical buildings, or will they be where people can do this remotely if there's another spike in COVID, or and with social isolation? So that was one question. The other thing is, what are unicorns?
Yes, good question, isn't it?
At least it's not an acronym. Unicorns are companies that start up and achieve $1 billion valuation. So not your average startups, but Cambridge and the Oxcam ARC have produced more unicorns, that being $1 billion startups, than anywhere else in the country. And if you can get one, they have a massive effect on an economy, as you can imagine. The incubators that are referred to, all of the incubators and innovation centres that we referred to there are already funded through the local growth fund, and are all in construction or planning now. and hence, by definition of construction, they will be physical places. But as they develop, all of them are moving much more towards a collaborative workspace where they actually have less people on desks working next to each other and more people actually coming in 1 or 2 days a week and working together collaboratively rather than in isolation next to each other on desks, which is probably a trend for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, did you want to come back?
Please, Chairman. Yeah, just one for John on that, on the incubators. I mean, as you probably know, and probably in other areas of Cambridgeshire as well, FDC have a couple of incubators. Is there any way that they can work with the CPCA on that?
Yes, and one of the, I think, 14 that I mentioned on that grid is a Fenland incubator that the LGF has contributed to, and we will work with all our local authorities around their incubators, because of course what we'll be looking for is really interesting high growth companies sitting in them that we can give growth investment and coaching to.
Okay, I've got nobody else indicating, so can we move to the recommendation? Can I have a proposer, please, for the recommendation, as amended in the way that Rochelle said? So Councillor Seaton proposing, Councillor Leach is seconded. Anybody against? And I take it you're all happy then? Thank you very much. Thank you, John. I take it we don't need Brian Harland now?
No.
Okay. All right. I think we're moving now. Could I ask Laura Gamer to introduce this report, please? Section Basic Academies. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Just about.
Just see. Right. Okay, thank you very much. You will have seen from the papers put forward that the combined authority will receive in £486,000, £279 worth of funding from the adult education budget stream in response to COVID-19. And we are seeking approval of the budget from the combined authority to spend this on high value courses and sector-based work academies, which will be procured via our local providers. Funding is to be split over 2 academic years and is as follows: £241,361 in the 2020-2021 and 21-22 academic year for sector-based work academies, and £244,936 across both academic years for high-value courses. The funding is following a statement made by Rishi Sunak to Parliament in July 2020, listing the measures of improvements for 16 to 24-year-olds. And the funding will support the creation of sector-based work academies, which offer Job Centre Plus claimants aged 19 to 24 pre-employment training, a work placement and a guaranteed job interview. And this is whilst they remain on benefits, and will also help businesses to fill local vacancies. High value courses will offer 18 and 19-year-olds that are unable to secure employment and are not progressing onto university the opportunity to remain in education and prevent them from becoming NEETs. This will become productive to the economy over the longer term. Courses are a year in duration, they're at level 2 and level 3, and they're a range of STEM academic qualifications or vocationally relevant qualifications. Job creation and programme promotion will be facilitated via our local networks and partnerships, and will be designed to roll out in phases to support those that are furthest away from the labour market. Referrers will also come in from Job Centre Plus and via our network coaches. The financial implications of the money received in are broken down as follows: £305,723 will come in the 2021 financial year, and £180,574 will come in over the financial year of 21-22. Funding will be in via our adult education budget stream, and separate budget lines will be created to ensure we have visibility of this. There are no legal implication on this, and I thank you for your time and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Laura. That was very clear and concise. Thank you for that. Members? Okay, Liz Every.
Thank you very much indeed. Can't find Laura because she's behind. Right, okay. Just wanted to thank you, Laura. That was really, really useful. Just a plea, please, for providers and how good they are. Having experienced locally a provider come in to do some work with our NEETs, which was totally inappropriate, and eventually they had to pack up and go away. I really do not want to see that kind of activity going on where A, money is spent, and B, there is no outcome. And I just wanted to urge that the appropriate checks and balances are in place when we start to take on outside providers. I love the idea of the academy approach, because this is, of course, the health academy style as well, which has worked so well across. So well done with all of that. But just a word of warning: it's very, very difficult in an area where actually people come along to do things and then just pack up and go away. It's demoralising for the students that they've had. So just a word of warning there. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
I'm sure Tanya will sort you out. David Ambrose.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you very much for the report. I'd just like to praise you on the report and the way it's been presented. I hope that the officers who presented the previous reports can learn a little bit from this. I'm not being, because this is actually giving us detail as we need it and as much as we need. Not getting at you, John, in any way. It's just as a way of going forward, I think. Thank you very much again, Laura.
Thank you.
I think you made the point beautifully, David. Short and sweet and precise. Okay, members, I don't have anybody else wishing to question, therefore can I say there's a general consensus on this report? I'll propose it if somebody would like to second it. Yeah, David, thank you very much. Yeah, so any objections? No, good. You come again, Laura. Thank you. Okay. Poor old John. Can we go back to you, John, please?
Thank you, Chair. So other than the appendices, this is a fairly straightforward paper. Members of the Skills Committee asked if they could see a delivery plan for the skills strategy. And what this paper intends to illustrate is that there is no delivery plan for the skills strategy as a single document. Because of the nature of the funding for the different parts of the skills strategy, the delivery plans are separate delivery plans. So if we take the three biggest parts of the skills strategy in terms of their interventions, we have the University of Peterborough, which is CPCA funding, both as gain share and LGF, Local Growth Fund. And hence that is in the form of an OBC and an outline business case and a full business case, which the committee approved the last time it met. AEB, because that's our adult education budget, because it's from the Department for Education, is actually given a delivery plan through a commissioning strategy, which is in line with the department's requirements for setting out how we spend the AEB. So the committee approved, I think in July, the commissioning strategy for the adult education budget, and that illustrates our delivery plan for that area. And then finally, for the STAR Hub, the Skills, Talent, Apprenticeship and Recruitment Hub, that forms part of the Business Growth Service, which you've seen today as a full business case. And that would be our delivery plan for that element. So both for the skills strategy and indeed for the local industrial strategy, there is no single delivery plan. There are delivery plans for different types of intervention that meet the requirements of the different funding sources we've used for each intervention. Thank you.
Thank you. Any members want to comment on that? David?
Well, thank John for a precise.
I knew you wouldn't miss that.
Thank you, John. Thanks very much.
A lack of people wishing to speak. Can I say that you note the delivery plans attached? Are you all happy to do that? Okay then. Happy to move on. Well done, John. You're learning to. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, Chair. Can I have a proposer and a seconder for the minutes, please?
You can, yeah. I'll propose.
Thank
David's going to second. Okay, Tamer, you flashed in there. Did you want anything? No. Okay. So nobody's against the proposal. Yeah. Okay. You happy with that? Thank you.
Thank you,
So
Chair.
we're back to John again, I think.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
She only came in with that interruption, you know, to give you a rest, mate.
It's appreciated. My voice is going today. So this is an update on the University of Peterborough Phase 2 project. I would remind members that the Phase 1 project was for a teaching building of 3,000 students capacity for £30 million and is due for completion in September 22. Phase 2 is a complementary development. The Phase 1 building, of course, addresses the 17,000 deficit in workers with a level 5, 6, 7, so a diploma, a degree or a master's in Peterborough and the surrounding fens and the high level skills gap we've got. But Phase 2 is all about a principle that goes something like this, in that there is no point in creating 17,000 more high level skills if we don't at the same time create 17,000 or more high value jobs for those skills to go into. And that's really what Phase 2 is all about. It's about funding a building for a research centre on the university campus, on the embankment, that can become much more than a research centre, in that it becomes the core of an innovation ecosystem of companies and research organisations all working together to replicate in a more modest way the world-class innovation ecosystem that sits in and around Cambridge. The funding for this is £14.6 million of what would have been called Local Growth Fund, but has now been renamed Get Building Fund from the Prime Minister's initiative to get building and put money into the construction sector to create jobs. We will be working with two proposers, two applicants for that funding, because the 14.6 million is an allocation of funding to us. We still need an application from people to pull that funding down. The applicants are Photocentric, a high-tech company in Peterborough, and Peterborough City Council. And we will subsequently, after that application and that application going through our Local Growth Fund assurance process of external independent evaluators and an entrepreneur assessment panel, and then going to the growth to the Business Board for final approval and the CA Board for ratification, we will run a procurement for an organisation to operate that R&D centre, and as we're calling it, curate into it high value adding research companies that can do research around the theme of net zero, carbon technologies and batteries, and work with the companies around Peterborough and up into the Fens and down into Huntingdon as well.
Well added, that last piece, John.
I'm learning.
Members, any questions on this? No, I don't. Can I have a proposal that you accept the recommendation? Right, John Leash, and seconder, please. Okay, I'll second it. Get it on the floor. Thank you very much. All those in favour? I don't have anybody against. Okay. Happy with that, Rochelle? I had to have nobody against it.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. No. Now where we go? We got somebody different. Vanessa.
I think it's
me. Chair, Vanessa's had to dash out for a child-related emergency from, so I'll be presenting the report on her behalf.
Okay, I think I may have jumped one there. John, are you suggesting I've jumped one?
We would just jump one report. Yeah.
Oh.
Right, we're back to you in a minute, mate. All right.
We're on Adult Education Budget Innovation Fund and the top slice.
All right. Yes. Okay. Okay. Sorry, John. I keep trying to get you a rest.
Don't get rid of me that easily, Chair. Members of the Skills Committee, when reviewing the adult education budget spend earlier in the year, noted a forecast underspend to the end of the year, and quite rightly asked officers to go away and suggest what would you do with that underspend. And this is the answer to that question. That underspend has also been underlined by COVID itself in the interim, in that all of our providers have been given the opportunity to retain the funding that we allocated to them, irrespective of the deliverables that they will actually achieve, resulting from the disruption to the education process and as a result of COVID-19. So I think the first thing to say is that our providers, both our granted providers, the FE and County Council, and our independent providers, will be sitting on an amount of money that we've allocated them for delivery that they won't have fully spent because of the disruption of COVID-19. Rather than confuse the task you'd given us to create an innovation fund for providers to come up with new ways of delivery and more effective ways of delivery, we've agreed, and we are reviewing our current providers to agree that any funding that they have been allocated that they have not used on eligible education, we will quantify that in this Q4 review, and we will agree with them how they will use that funding in the next academic year in the delivery of their normal adult education courses. That still leaves us then with the underspend, not COVID related, between April 19 and March 20, that we have for this innovation fund. Added to that amount of underspend. We also have been given 327k from the local growth fund to add to our innovation fund. This was an amount of money that had been allocated to WATA, which I can't remember what it's called, a water training academy in Huntingdon, that went insolvent, and Julie gave us back 327k that we'd allocated them. So we've also used that to build this innovation fund that you see in front of you that is provisionally 520k. The innovation fund itself, we're asking all our existing contractors to put applications in for pilots and schemes that either help them adapt to COVID longer term. So for instance, City College is looking at a proposal around hardware and new content that allows them to deliver much more remotely, or deliver remotely much more. But also we're looking for proposals that will help providers increase their outcomes in future years by more innovative methods of delivery around progression into further education or progression into employment. So it's an innovation fund. It's for not business as usual funding of training and education. It is for pilots that improve efficiency or adapt to post-COVID delivery. Thank you.
Good. Okay, members. Any questions on that one? Okay. Can I propose then we accept that report? Do I have a seconder on that?
Oh.
I had a question.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I now have two people. No, one person. Yes, you, Councillor Wilson. Yeah.
I just wanted to know, this is money that comes direct from the Department for Education. So the underspend and the fact that we've got providers sitting on sums of money that they aren't using, can this affect the adult education budget in the future coming from government?
Thank you.
Good question.
Yeah, it is. Yes, very, very important question. When COVID hit and basically learners were sent home, particularly the colleges, who you will appreciate have got fairly precarious finances at the best of times, were very, very worried that the CPCA would simply claw back much of the funding we'd given them on the basis that they could no longer deliver. The Department for Education issued an agreement and permission for us to leave our allocations with the FE colleges, and believe it or not, that would not be reconciled in the future. We have, however, agreed with the providers that we would, in our Q4 review, quantify how much they've had, how much they have spent outside of the original permission. For instance, delivering when students came back was much more expensive per head than before they went. So they will have spent some of that funding, not for the outcomes or for less outcomes. So we will quantify that. We'll also quantify what they're sitting on that they just simply haven't spent or done anything with. And all this is agreed with the Department for Education.
Okay, I think they've also agreed that there'll be no clawback, yeah?
That's correct, yes.
Yep. Okay, thank you very much. No, I still haven't got anybody else, so I'll propose that we accept this report, which is the approach on the innovation fund to be how it's managed. Okay, can I have a second then? Are you happy to second, Council? You've got, got 2 or 3 now. Okay. Thank you very much. Everybody happy? Do I see any consent? No, I don't. So thank you very much. Now then, this young man that's been waiting in the wings for his debut report. Okay. So instead of Vanessa, I'm sorry, I never caught your name, young man, so perhaps you'd introduce yourself.
Very well. Yes, I was intending to. I'm not sure I presented to the Skills Committee before. I'm the Deputy Chief Finance Officer for the Combined Authority. My name's Robert Emery, and I'm also the Chief Finance Officer for the Business Board. As I mentioned, Vanessa has had to run out for family reasons, so I'll be covering for her today. The first half of the regular finance and performance report you get, as always, focuses on the finances in your area. There's only a couple of items to note this month. The first is the adult education budget, which John has just spoken about. And the second is a quite substantial reduction in the expected spend on the Health and Social Care Work Academy this year. The reason for that is due to a nationwide low uptake in the courses being offered by that. We approached the Department for Work and Pensions, who provide the funding for it, with a proposal to extend the time frame for the project so that it could still achieve its outcomes just over a longer time period. They've come back and agreed that, and so the funding is being rephased over a longer period, resulting in lower spend this year. The funding itself is a specific grant, so we can't really use it for any other options, even if we wanted to, unfortunately. In terms of the capital programme, you'll see there's quite a substantial looking change in the forecast spend for the University of Peterborough. I just want to reassure the committee that that's purely a financial adjustment, and it reflects a change in how we're going to be paying for the CPCA shares in the University of Peterborough. In effect, we'll be signing up for them on day one, but not actually paying the money across to the company until it needs it for the build, because this provides greater financial security both for the company and the CPCA's money. The actual timescales and deliverables of the project are completely unchanged, but I realised that knocking £10 million off your expenditure might raise a few eyebrows, so I thought it was worth taking some time to explain that.
Well done.
So those are the only 2 things in the current year. September is also the start of the annual budget setting process for the Combined Authority. So this month you've also been provided with a cut of the current medium-term financial plan that was approved at the Combined Authority Board in June. As an exec committee, you're being asked to have a look at the current MTFP and say if there's anything in particular you want focused on during our work to build the new budget. And in terms of the process that's going to go through from here, any feedback you give us today or anything if you have at a later stage that you want to feed back via, say, the chair or your chief officer, John, will be taken into account over the next sort of 8 weeks leading into the November Combined Authority meeting, at which there'll be a draft budget presented. The Combined Authority will review that and hopefully approve it for consultation, at which point it will be published on our website for the public to respond to, as well as sent to key stakeholders, which are the constituent authorities and the business board. Over the Christmas period, we work on anything that's sent back, it's presented to leaders, leading into the January meeting of the Combined Authority Board, where the final budget for the coming year and the medium-term financial plan for the next 4 is discussed, reviewed and approved. I should, just before I open for any questions, cover one that will probably get asked, which, apologies for this, but there's an omission. The paragraph 5.5 just tailors off into nothing. What that should identify is that the Careers and Enterprise Company, the skills brokerage and an element of the skills strategy implementation budgets are going into their activities, not necessarily the budget, is going into the growth service, which again, John has spoken about earlier in the meeting, which is why 2 of those lines don't have a funding line going forwards and 1 of them does. But in reality, that's going to be reduced in your next paper to show that £50,000 a year is going into the growth service. Are there any questions or comments?
Well, that was quite clear. Thank you very much. Members, any questions? Haven't any hands at the moment. Okay. Can I move? Do I have a seconder, a proposer and seconder? Right, have a proposer in John Niche and a seconder in Chris Seaton. Anybody against? All happy with that? I see no objections. So I think that's clear that that's unanimous. You can come again too.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, okay. Just get back to where I should be. So I think now I'm going to Councillor Davey, am I not? Is that right, Tamar?
Yes, Councillor Davey had a question that he wanted to raise under any of the
He
business.
did. Yes, Councillor Davey. Yeah.
Grateful, Chair. It's with regards to, and I have forewarned both Eileen, Councillor Wilson and John about this. It's with regards to the announcement at the back end of last week of the 400 redundancies at booking.com in Cambridge. And it's really to look and, it's just to raise awareness, but also to consider what the combined authority might do in conjunction with other partners to support those who are going to be facing redundancy. I suspect, again, forgive me, it's relatively parochial, but I think other authorities and reps from other authorities may be affected. I think the final thing to say is I was aware, but only superficially, of the support that was offered to the redundancies that came from Thomas Cook in Peterborough earlier in the past. And it's really just to see if there's any way the combined authority can work with others to support those people who've been made redundant. And I think in some respects, whilst it relates parochially to Cambridge and South Cambs in this instance, I suspect this will not be the last time in the COVID situation that this will happen. And it's almost like establishing an ability and a process about how we might tackle these immediate results from COVID. So it's really, Council Chairman, it's just really to make awareness. John may want to come back at a later date, but it's just to raise awareness at this time.
Sorry.
Don't worry, John, don't worry.
I've got a new phone and I don't know how to switch it off.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if John would like to respond or...
Yeah, fine. I mean, it's a different situation to the Thomas Cook one, because Thomas Cook one was run by Bays, because it was a national situation where there was more jobs in Liverpool, Manchester and Peterborough than right across the country. But I don't know whether John wants to comment on that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, in fact, the Thomas Cook response and task force was led by Peterborough City Council and delivered by Opportunity Peterborough. It involved a wide range of interventions around skills audits and training needs analysis to help people get redeployed, accessing job opportunities external to the job centre by networking into and across the business community, training and financial guidance around redundancy, and including counselling for the emotional impact. Also looked at training career pathways for level 2 and 6 qualifications for people to move into other sectors, particularly around digital, customer service, retail and business admin. So it really was quite a comprehensive response. The CPCA did support, but it was very much in a supportive capacity. We worked with Opportunity Peterborough and the council to connect people that lost their jobs with the growth advisors for guidance on setting up a startup as an alternative to getting another job. And we connected those peoples with startup grants as well. And we also connected them with the adult education budget to qualify for different jobs. So it was a very comprehensive response package. but in the main led by the City Council, actually, with some backup from the CPCA.
Do you have a name, John, who led the work in Peterborough at the City Council?
Tom Hennessy, Peterborough. Tom Hennessy, Opportunity Peterborough.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I suspect if Councillor Wilson and myself will probably go to Tom if that's possible. It's useful to learn from the work that was undertaken then rather than attempt to do something new. And even I do appreciate what Councillor Hilditch was saying about the difference. Nonetheless, the implications for the staff are still the same. So,
absolutely. Yes, I agree entirely. And thank you for raising it, because that is a big lump of jobs, that, isn't it? Okay, thank you for raising that. I think that concludes the business part of the meeting. And the next meeting is the 9th of November. And the arrangements for that meeting will be confirmed. I guess we were probably looking to have a committee by then, but it doesn't look as that'll be possible the way we are the Super Six. There we go. So thank you all for your attendance. That's been a very, very, very informative meeting. And we look forward to seeing the success of it. Thank you very much to you all. Thank you.
Chair.
Chairman, my apologies. I crashed 3 times during the meeting, and unfortunately, I'm glad that you were able to continue the meeting, because I wouldn't have been a lot of help some of the time.
Well, I crashed completely, so but that was the only time. But never mind. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.